Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn all the most efficient, powerful, abundant ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent, increasing revenue year over year. I cover topics from pricing, sales, networking, objections, ideal clients, some marketing ideas, and really about how to increase your cash flow and profitability and set boundaries so you have the firm that you've always dreamt of. You're no longer giving away your time for free. You're no longer putting yourself on sale, and you are being paid for the value and worth that clients actually appreciate you for. So you'll learn tips and strategies as well as hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm of your dreams and the life full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is Andrea Waltz. She's the co-founder of Courage Crafters and is the co-author of the best-selling book, Go for No. And yes is the destination, and no is how to get there. For almost 2 decades, Andrea has been teaching people in virtually every type of business and industry how to think and feel differently about failure, rejection, and the word no to achieve their goals and dreams. Today, Go for No is a well-known methodology in the world of sales and widely recognized as the singular best program that deals with rejection in business. So I'm very excited to welcome Andrea to the show today. It's one of my favorite topics of being told no. And I just want to share, I have a brand new masterclass that I talk about how to double and triple fees and how being rejected is a great thing. So I work with accountants and tax pros on how to increase their monthly revenue there by a far, far, far simpler method than maybe what you're currently doing today, which could be discounting fees or even just doing some free work or having scope creep. So if you want to check out my new masterclass, head on over to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. Make sure to register and watch. If you can't make the time, register anyway, and you'll get a chance to watch the replay. So now let's welcome Andrea to the show.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I am so excited to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's an honor to have you. If you could you share with all the listeners who you are and why they should listen to you today?
Absolutely. Well, my name's Andrea Waltz. I am the co-author of the best-selling book, Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. I have been personally an entrepreneur now for about 23 years. And that happened kind of by accident, actually. My now husband and business partner convinced me that we would be better off leaving our corporate jobs and going out on our own, teaching our sales philosophies, customer service, management, training ideas outside rather than working inside the company. So
yeah,
I agreed. Yeah. I was just naive enough, luckily, which I think is a good, that is a good skill to have whenever you want to launch out on your own. And that's what we've done. So we one of the concepts that we taught was this idea of Go for No. We ended up writing a book about it. And we teach this concept to sales professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs of all shapes, sizes, and kinds. Anyone who has to face failure and rejection, anyone who has to hear no when it comes to building their business is who we help.
Yep, I love it. Well, it's great to have you here because I'm all about that. And I had a whole podcast before called Success Unfiltered where all I did was interview really, large corporations and businesses and entrepreneurs that have been rejected so many times to get to where they're at today. And I think I love how you said that no is how you get to the yes. And the more no's you hear, the better off you are. So I think it'd be really great to, cover a little bit about what you teach and what you share maybe in your book, some high level things, especially for those accounting and tax firm, side hustle owners that might be listening or others who are in corporate that, when they're terrified of leaving their steady paycheck, completely nervous on where the next client's going to come from. And, in a corporate environment, you're just given work to do, and going out on your own, you get to face failure, you get to face rejection. And what are those main teaching that we can learn from today? So everyone, with your yellow pads or white notepads, and have a pen and paper ready, because, Andrea is going to share with us, will, I'm sure, be very similar to what you've heard from me, but from a different point of view, and someone who's been in corporate and went out on their own and had to face that fear and go, like you said, be naive. I think a lot of people listening are researchers. We're going to find a way to talk our way into staying in a job, or thinking, why did I go out and do my firm? It might be easier just to have a job. So I'm very happy to have you here on the Abundant Accountant podcast today. So for you, Andrea, what do you feel is the biggest hurdle that business owners, AKA sales professionals, because if you own your firm, you've signed up for a 24/7 sales career, face as it relates to the failures and the rejections that they're going to see?
Yeah, well, that is a great question. And I think the first thing people have to recognize is that no one is coming to save you. That's the biggest lesson. So when you set off on your own, and when you are an independent business owner, when you are an entrepreneur, you are the one who has to go out and find the clients. And so what that requires is a tremendous amount of courage and willingness to face those rejections and those failures. And then even when you do reach a certain level of success, you've also got to be willing to, take some chances and take some risks, even in scaling up your business. I'm sure you have listeners who, have had some success, but
of course, mm-hmm.
Right. But you get complacent, and then before you know it, it's kind of like you're doing the same thing year after year. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe there's some higher level clients. Maybe there's some bigger fish out there that if you just went out there and approached them and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, can we meet? Can we set an appointment? That you would be able to even take your business to the next level. So the reality is that we have to take responsibility for the fact that we're the people that we're the rainmakers, we're the people that bring in the business when you are in your own business. And I think that's the thing that scares a lot of people who are still in their corporate jobs is, how does that look? And what does that look like? And those people want to know it's a sure thing. And they want to know that there's not going to be a failure, and they want those guarantees. And unfortunately, there are no guarantees, especially when it comes to being in your own business. I can imagine that there's people out there who probably launched their business 30 days before COVID. And all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, this was not in my plan, right? And so, yeah, we get thrown for loops sometimes, and we have failures, but you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you come up with the best possible plan you can. But at the end of the day, you have to have the courage to just take that risk, and to know that when you do, there's nothing like, I will tell you, when I left my corporate job, there's a weird feeling when you wake up in the morning and you realize finally there is no safety net. This is it. Like if you want income, if you want money to be coming through the door, you've got to go out and knock on some doors to find it. So it's kind of a different feeling, I think, when you finally make the leap. There's that like cliched saying about, you jump off a cliff and you'll build your wings on the way down. I think there's truth and power to that, because you're forced to, and only when you're really living it. You can only plan, strategize, make notes for so long. Eventually, you have to take the risk. But Michelle, before we go any further, I do want to share with the listeners a story of how Go for No came about. And I'm just going to warn everybody, this is a story about clothing sales. So I know that it doesn't have to do with accounting, but this is kind of how Richard, my husband, discovered Go for No. And he told me this story when we were still working in our jobs. And it was really the thing that kind of like made me realize the power of the word no. And basically the story is he was working in automotive fleet sales for his dad in Chicago. He absolutely hated it. His father was like a sales legend. He decided he wanted to get out of his father's sales legend shadow. He moved to Los Angeles. He gets a job selling suits for a living, and he's basically failing. But he thinks, well, the district manager, this guy named Harold, is scheduled to visit the store. And he's pretty sure, my husband, Richard, is pretty sure that when Harold comes in, if he can like sell really well in front of this guy, that they'll give him some time to improve his sales. So the day comes, Richard shows up, Harold is there, this district manager. They open the doors to the store, and this customer walks in. And he basically announces that he wants to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing. And so my husband, Richard, proceeds to take care of this man and sell him a suit, a sport coat, pants, slacks, belt, pocket square.
You name it, he got it all.
He got it all. Now, this is way back. So we have to use numbers of today. The sale came to like $1,100. This is like in the, like mid 80s when my husband was a really young guy. And, so he has this great sale, which today would be probably like spending, about $5,000. So he has this great sale. Harold finally comes over, and now my husband is thinking that Harold's going to congratulate him and tell him what a fabulous job he did with this customer. But instead, Harold asks him this question. He said, Richard, out of curiosity, what did that customer say no to? And Richard is like, what do you mean, Harold? That customer bought a suit and a sport coat and all of these things. It was $1,100. It was this huge sale. And Harold said, yeah, I know what he bought. That's the easy part, the yeses. We know what he bought. What did that customer say no to? And then Richard had to admit, he's like, well, everything I laid in front of that guy, he bought. And then Harold asked him the really important question. He said, well, then how did you know he was done? And that was the question where Richard...
That's a great question.
It is, isn't it? And he had to admit that how he knew the customer was done was basically that customer hit his mental spending limit. It was like the guy was saying yes to everything. Richard was showing things. And then when he got to about $1,100, since that was his limit of what he personally... It was his
limiting belief that he limited his potential sale to his customer in front of him that might have bought 10 versions of that set.
Exactly. So he rings the sale up, he sends the customer on his way, and Harold's basically like, your fear of the word no is going to kill you. I think if you could he's like, I watched you sell, you're not half bad, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. If you could just learn to get over that, I think you could be one of the great ones. And so Richard went home that night. He went home that night, and he says this all the time when we speak. He says, I realized I was 2 letters from greatness, and the letters were N-O. I didn't know if I had what it took to succeed, but I knew I had what it took to fail more. I could hear no more often. I could show more products and services to customers, be willing to hear no more often. And that would lead me to more sales success. And that's exactly what he did. So he ended up having a great career in clothing and other retail companies. And then that's when we finally met. And Michelle, he told me that story. And I actually was kind of a superstar salesperson. But when I heard that story, I was like, you know what? I don't like hearing the word no. If I could just get more comfortable with it, I could probably do better as well, right? And so that has been our mission ever since. That's one of the stories we tell. And I think it's important to know that, you may not be selling in retail, and most people aren't selling clothing these days, but it's really instructive. I think there's a lot of lessons to pull out, which the one that you picked up on, which was, hey, he had this belief, he had this limiting spending limit, right? Which I think a lot of business owners do. They come up with their fees and they think, this is the best I can do. I can get $100 an hour, and that's the best I can do. Or I can charge $500 for tax prep, and that's the highest I can charge. It's like, wait a minute, you're the one who's coming up with these limiting beliefs on your fees, right?
Right.
So that's a big lesson. And the other lessons that are kind of embedded in that story are just what other products and services. And I think there's a tendency on the part of a lot of business owners who have specialties. You might have a specialty in one area of accounting or kind of do general services, but do your clients and do future clients know everything that you have to offer? Or are you just trying to get that one yes, and then you're not saying, hey, this is everything I can do. I can help your business this way. I can help your business that way. And get some more no's within that, which doesn't require you going out and prospecting for any new business. It's just getting no's from current clients.
Right. And I think, and I mean, I talk about this all the time, and it's in my brand new masterclass. I talk about how to raise fees 200 to 300% to your current clients without getting any new clients. So that's exactly what I just launched last night as we're speaking today. And I think it's an easy thing to talk about, right? And your husband said, well, at $1,100, he's got what he needs. And that was based on what he thought. So what's the next thing with that story that you would teach something different today to offer a current client more services, to bring more value to them, to, if we were selling clothes like in your story, let's still use the story because I think relating it to an actual experience is very powerful. What, Andrea, is the next step to take to get more no's, to see if he can sell $5,000 of clothes during that time back in the day? What is that next technique that you speak on and teach on that someone listening today can implement and try and watch what results come from it?
So it's kind of a two-step process.
Okay.
Number one, first, you need to do a little assessment, right, of where you are. We call this creating a no awareness. So where are you now in your current hearing the word no? So for example, if you go back to the story, Richard really was doing everything within his power not to hear no, right? He got a few yeses and he's like, okay, great, I'm done. So how often are you hearing the word no in prospecting for new clients and working with your current clients? Are you getting any pushback to fees, which is a big, a signal that, okay, you're asking at a higher level. If you're not getting any pushback, then people are just saying yes and it's easy. That may feel great, and you feel like I don't have any conflict, but you're not maximizing your potential. I'm sure that's something that you probably dig way into the psychology of that in the stuff that you teach, which is super cool because I think there's so much psychology to that in terms of asking for your fees. So that's step one, is creating no awareness. But step two is really powerful, and that is to set a no goal. And it's very simple. We all set typical yes goals in our business, and that's a goal for the number of yeses you're going to get. And there's so many aspects to setting yes goals. You could have a revenue goal. You could have some people might have a goal to meet with maybe one or two new clients a week, knowing that a certain number of those will convert, however you want to look at it. But basically, when you set a no goal, it's setting a goal for the number of no's that you are going to hear in a given week. Now, it could be that you're setting that no goal literally within a meeting or within a conversation with a client, or it could be for both meetings and appointments to get new clients and with current existing clients. But when you set a no goal, what tends to happen is it keeps you in action. You're focused on the behaviors necessary to impact your business. So in this case, the goal is to ask the questions that convert clients, whether it's sitting down with a client, having a meeting and saying, okay, would you like to go ahead and sign up for my service? These are the two plans. These are the two options. You get a no, you get a yes, whatever. And then here are the other services. You show those. Maybe you get a couple no's, maybe you don't. And you collect no's throughout the week. And then at the end of this process, what you find is you typically have far more yeses because you're focused on the behaviors necessary of going for no.
Wow. Yeah, I've never tracked my no's, but I'm sure it's a ton. And I think for each person to bring a focus on that, and especially, with this new year and going into a new quarter, by the time everyone's listening to this, and not having to deal with another tax season like you're dealing with. What if you were to charge what you wanted from a client and we played a game and asked so many clients and asked to raise fees and change things for the next year and got new engagement letters signed and new invoices paid, and count how many no's you get. And the clients that I've worked with, Andrea, that have done this, the amount of no's is pretty small. They've actually gotten more yeses and were in shock that clients would pay 2 or 3 or sometimes 400% of wherever they're at today without even blinking an eye.
I love that. That's so powerful. And a part of that, Michelle, I think is just one, having that courage to ask and not making, the single biggest thing. And if somebody is listening to this right now, whether you are, an entrepreneurial type accountant, you have your own accounting firm, or you're even in a corporate environment, I think you can set and achieve your no goals. But the biggest detriment to that, kind of the kryptonite, I like to say, is making assumptions. And I think a lot of times, in order to protect ourselves from that rejection, to not have to deal with it, to not have to feel it, to not have to feel that fear, we come up with all of these assumptions of, well, my clients, they can't afford that, or they're never gonna pay that, or they've paid X amount for the last 12 years. Well, if that's true, then I think it's time you raise your fee, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's very true. And I think, I'd be curious to know, what was your husband's assumption back then when he was selling these clothes? Why did he stop at 1,100? What was it for him?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that, because the funny thing is, people often assume that because we wrote Go for No, that we must be these like fearless people who have no problem with rejection or failure or anything. And actually, Richard and I both didn't like to hear the word no. We ourselves really needed this message. Otherwise, we really couldn't explain it to other people. So his, I think, biggest assumption was, one, I don't want this customer to get annoyed with me, think I'm being that pushy, aggressive salesperson. And so I'm going to not share these additional things. I'm not going to put this stuff out here for him, because he'll just assume that that's the way I'm being. And he had such a fear of that's what he did. It's that kind of assumption. The best way that we found to get around that kind of assumption, though, is to always, whenever you're suggesting something to your client, you have to tie it to what you've heard and what you've managed to gather and what you know about them. So it's not just, hey, I've got this new service. Maybe you're adding in, some kind of maybe payroll function or something. It's not just, hey, do you want this new payroll add-on? It's going to cost you another $80 every 2 weeks. It's, hey, you're probably running ragged. You're probably tired of doing your own payroll. It's a hassle. And if mistakes are made, then it's a real hassle to fix mistakes. I've lived through this, Michelle, so I know this personally.
Right.
And so here's why I recommend that you add this on to our current service. And when you tie in the reason why you are, adding something on, I think it goes a long way in helping clients understand that it's not just that you're selling something additional, there's reasons behind it. So that helps, I think, break down some of the fear that people have that, oh, this person's just going to think I'm selling for no reason.
Right. Well, I mean, everyone has the fear of, you don't want to be that annoying, pushy salesperson, and you don't want to bother anybody, especially our current clients. And for everyone listening, we also have the fear that we don't want our clients to leave us. So if we don't want our current clients to leave us, then, Andrea, we can, and this is maybe going to be a little bit more challenging question, but I think it's an important one. It's like, this all sounds fine and dandy, but what if that fear or those fears are so much greater than what the opportunity is from the current mindset or the current point of view from the firm owner or the current point of view from that, accounting or tax pro sitting in a corporate cubicle right now, listening to this, saying, yeah, Andrea, this sounds great, but I don't know. I can't afford that. I can't do that. I don't have the leverage to invest in my business now, or, whatever it may be. Like, I don't know what the mind trick you did to go out on your own. I know I can't work for anybody. So it was very black and white for me. But I think for a lot of people, it's a pretty gray area. And we go back and forth like a yo-yo, up, down, sideways, every which way. And then we just stay comfortable.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, there's so much to unpack there, because you have two things, right? You've got that fear. First of all, fear of loss is probably the most powerful, and it's the greatest fear. And that if you've got a certain number of clients, the last thing you want to do is lose them. So as you said, I think you've identified the heart of it. The big issue with our brains, though, is that we kind of have to stand back and remind ourselves we are biologically wired in our DNA to have fears that are almost to the point of irrational. And the reason for that, of course, is to keep us fed and clothed and surviving. So your brain is always going to have and come up with far worse scenarios and far worse fears that are ever really going to happen, that are not going to show up in reality. So it's really important to, when you start thinking like, I'm going to lose half my clients, and I'm going to be destitute tomorrow, I'm literally going to be living under the freeway overpass tomorrow, that is not true. That's just your brain really trying to get you in action. And the other thing to kind of couple that with that, and a lot of this, it's like, well, what's the skill? What's the actual?
What's the skill? What's the action step? What do they do right now?
Right. And that's the thing, is there's not a lot of action when you're talking about fear, except to deal with it in your mind.
And then it doesn't go anywhere. So the only way to take action is to say, okay, fear, I see you, but you have to step to the side so I can access courage, which that will help you take steps into doing some of the things that Andrea talked about today, which are basically the main two things that everyone should do. Take an inventory of your nose, right?
Yep.
Track your nose. And the other thing is write out your current awareness of your current hearing of no. Like, do you even hear it? What do they do on that one step? Do you have people rate it from 1 to 10? Like, can you share a little bit about the actionable steps for those that want to step into courage and set fear aside? Because if you want to live in fear, honestly, I can't help and Andrea can't help.
Michelle, that's so true. That is so true. And I will tell you this, and this is, so I didn't, like you, unlike you, I had always worked for other people, and I had never considered being an entrepreneur until my husband approached me and was like, and he wasn't my husband, by the way, at that point. And so that's a whole other podcast we don't have time for.
Not today, but after this episode, we can do another one in the future.
Exactly. So he approaches me and he's telling me all of this. And I'm like, it seemed to me to be kind of crazy. And I really had an employee mindset. I didn't have an entrepreneur mindset. I had always worked for other people. So it was very odd to me and kind of weird. And then I realized after we left and we were setting things up, and I realized I was better off, and that my situation in life, my whatever I was going to do, that taking that step would still have me in a better place. And it would be worth it, even if I crashed and burned. Like, I just realized that I would rather have kind of let go, clinging to something that I was really truly unhappy with, and that whatever came down the line would be better, even if my, this dream of doing this business with him didn't work out. So that's kind of the one thing, is you have to have a certain amount of just faith in yourself and belief that, hey, it's going to work out either way. And yeah, you want it to work. You want to do everything you can, but sometimes it's just worth taking the leap. So that's the one hand, but kind of back to your question about the no awareness, Michelle. So setting the no goals is step number 2. And that's where you say, you know what, I'm going to set a goal, to your point of going back to your current clients with a new fee schedule. I'm going to set a goal to hear 25 no's. I'm going to go out to 25% of my clients with this new proposal, and with these new fees, and try to see if I can collect 25 no's. Now, if you don't, then congratulations. Now, you didn't hit your no goal, but congratulations. That means you got a lot of yeses. So you win either way. Step 1, backing up before that, is to create a no awareness. So you really kind of track you track how many no's you're hearing without really setting a goal. So how many meetings are you having per week? How many no's did you have to your offers? How many opportunities, and I call these go for no moments, were you executing, where you were
go for no moments? I love it.
Go for no moment. So are you, how many clients did you email? How many things did you send out, or whether it's whatever your method of communication is, where someone had to make a decision and you collected either a yes, no, or I know oftentimes we don't hear anything, but at least we can look at the responses and then break it down and say, okay, there's people that don't hear any no's because they're doing such little activity, right? They're doing such little activity in their business. They're going after the one client they say, I know this person is going to say yes to me. I will call them back. I'll follow up.
The easy one where they can't crash and burn.
Exactly. The easy yes, the incoming lead, the referral from their cousin, whatever. And that was the easy one. They go like, okay, I got a yes this week. I didn't hear any no's. So that's what I mean by no awareness is to the extent that you can document that, all the better, because then you can look back on that and say, wow, 60, 90 days ago, I wasn't hearing no at all. And now this month I collected 25. But in collecting those 25 no's, how many yeses did you get?
Yep. No, I love that. And then the first step, to reiterate, since I set them in reverse, so that was step number 2. The first step to take action on today is to actually identify your current hearing of no, and do an assessment of, mostly a reflection exercise, would you say?
It really is. Yeah. And you can get, it kind of depends on how nerdy you want to get with it, right? If you're a numbers analytical person, which I know a lot of people listening to this probably are, then document it. Say, I got one today. I got 2 yesterday. Okay. I got none, the next day. And look at it for at least 7 days. Give yourself a benchmark, and then the next week set a no goal based on what you kind of assessed. But I think a lot of people that I have worked with over the years, Michelle, they do kind of it is a reflection. Yeah. I think a lot of people, a lot of us are very good with our yeses. I mean, I know that it's like, if I asked the average salesperson in any industry, how many yeses did you get this week? They'd be able to say, oh yeah, I closed 4 sales or 14 or whatever. Most people have no idea how many no's they heard.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And, this was such a great conversation today. And it's a different perspective, and it's everything. I did all these interviews from like April of 2017 till about 2019. On my other podcast, all about this exact topic of being rejected, being told no. Wasn't in the accounting space. It was with and all types of different business owners and big ones. Some of us know, like, Justin's Peanut Butter and a lot of huge brands. And just to hear what they had to overcome for us to say, these are foods that we eat, or brands that we use, or, apps that we use on our phones. They didn't get there without figuring out their blueprint of how they hear a no, and what their current level of hearing is. And then God knows how many their no's were on their goals for the week. So I think, Andrea, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you here. And, is there anything else that you want to share that, we didn't touch on this specific topic, and we can always schedule another time for a part 2?
Well, it was so much fun for me to talk to you because you so live this message of embracing rejection as part of the process. And that's really what it is. It's not about, there are ways of reducing the number of no's you hear. And I think scripting and quality matters, but at the end of the day, oftentimes it just comes down to having the courage to ask. And so that's kind of the message that I would leave people is have that courage and check your assumptions, because oftentimes they're faulty. They're just trying to protect you. That's just your brain protecting you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's lovely. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for reminding us that our brains are here to protect us, and remember that if fear's in the way, we can't access courage, and this all requires courage. So something has to go, put it to sleep, have your fear take a nap for a little while to see what kind of courage comes out and what results you get from seeing that courage. So thank you again. It's an honor to have you here, and we'll do a part 2 soon.
Yes. Thanks, Michelle.
What an amazing episode with Andrea. So much goodness in there. And, I think for each person, if you're not going to do anything that we shared today and set, fear to the side and put courage at full play, at least do a current assessment of your hearing of no. Do you have an awareness of it? Grab your journal, grab your notepad, grab your pen, and just think about, how do I feel when I hear no? How often do I hear it? And then, for next month, you can come up with a great goal for yourself on all of those go for no moments, because I love how she said the no is how we get there. And yes is the destination. We all want to hear yes from our clients, but we also want to hear yes at the premium fees that we want to charge. We don't want to charge low fees or feel like a commodity anymore. And if you need a little bit of help with that, I've talked about that as one of the biggest shifts in my new masterclass that you can register for at theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass, because discounting fees, getting as many clients as possible, sending out quotes and hoping that they're going to contact you, it might be a great strategy for those that want to work harder and with a lot more struggle. But the simple fact is the clients that I work with, they triple their base fees. They are charging higher fees. They are getting paid premiums and upfront with no accounts receivable. And if you want to learn how they do that, head on over to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. Make sure to register and watch. And I have a special offer at the end for you all. And if you can't make the time of the webinar, just make sure to register and I will send you the replay. So you'll get the replay. And it's an investment about 45 minutes, but it will provide a lifetime of increased revenue for your firm without working more hours or taking on any more clients. So once again, theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass, and I look forward to seeing you there.